One on the chin once against the Milwaukee Bucks, losing the season series. What was the story of this game in your mind, Coos?
I think just overall, big picture, we saw some of the excellent possessions, performances from Kevin Durant, from Kyrie Irving, some timely buckets from the others, but you need everyone. The story that we have talked about throughout the course of the season is the contributions top to bottom in the roster. You didn't quite see that here tonight. And then also, I think there's moments that you looked at Milwaukee and they just outworked the Nets in certain situations and possessions. They felt like they wanted it more, and they came up with some of those big game-changing plays, especially down the stretch in the fourth quarter, that kept Brooklyn at bay and hopefully allows them to have a little bit of perspective of where they're at in the season and what they'll need to bring if these two teams meet in the postseason.
Nets lose by 6. Milwaukee had 20 second-chance points in this game. Let's hear from Nets head coach Steve Nash, who just sat down with the media.
Hey, Steve, just looking at that stretch in the fourth quarter, their 18-1 run, what did you think kind of turned the game, and where did you guys struggle in that stretch?
Yeah, we had a poor stretch. You know, I think it was a little bit of a photo of the night in general, is that they were just overall more physical than us at both ends of the floor. You know, our gap for our team is that we don't have a common history. You know, we're brand new. Everything's new. We've changed teams more or less a number of times. So we got a gap to make up as far as our understanding of one another. And while we make up that gap, we got to be more physical. We got to win 50-50 balls, and we got to do the dirty work, you know, because we have to give ourselves some sort of buffer while we figure each other out, while we get more familiar with our schemes and our sets, and give ourselves, like I said, that little cushion where maybe it's not as smooth, it's not as seamless at all times, but we're still able to scrap and claw and stay in the games.
Bruce Beck, NBC New York.
Steve, the 15 offensive rebounds by the Bucks, is that kind of what you're talking about in terms of hustle, in terms of tenacity tonight? That was definitely in their favor.
It is a great indicator. You know, I think it tells a story of a slightly bigger picture than just the rebounds, but you know, they did a great job being physical at both ends. They got a lot of offensive rebounds. They got into us defensively. You know, we had our chance. You know, I think it was early in the fourth. We went up 5 points, and then had a really sloppy stretch. I think you said an 18-1 run. So, you know, we had our chances. We didn't execute when it really mattered, but a great opportunity for us to take something from this series, from this game, and grow from it.
Alex Schiffer, The Athletic.
Hey, Steve, it seemed like you kind of kept the same tactic for guarding Giannis tonight. Now, obviously, he didn't drop 50 like he did last time. Just what would you make of the effort there and the job you guys did on him this time around?
Yeah, you know, very similar. We made a few mistakes, but overall, you're going to live with a lot of the shots he took. He didn't shoot it as well tonight. And, you know, again, it was, that's not the reason we lost. You know, I think you talk about all the offensive rebounds. You talk about the 50-50 balls. You talk about missing 10 free throws. You know, there's a lot of areas that we could clean up.
Brian Lewis, New York Post.
Steve, in terms of the physicality, is it fair to say that that's not really a personnel issue or a roster issue? That's more of a grit issue? I mean, there were a couple plays down the stretch where Middleton came through the lane and there really was not a lot of physical resistance.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not necessarily the forte of our roster, but there's no excuse for not trying to match or, you know, be more physical than the other team. And so that's something that we got to work at. We got to be diligent about. We got to make it a tangible goal for ourselves, and and collectively do it for one another. Go the extra mile for your teammates. So that's something that we got to emphasize and continue to grow into.
Christian Winfield, New York Daily News.
Hey, Coach, I think it was a 16-1 run that they went on in the fourth quarter, and I think a few of us were a little surprised that there wasn't a timeout call. Was that a tactical play there by you, or did time just go by pretty quickly?
We could have called timeout here or there for sure, but I think there's also a part of our team that you want to learn to problem solve, and we're getting good looks at the basket at stretches, and so you want to keep having them problem solve. You want to keep them attacking, and tonight maybe I could have called another timeout, but you also want to make sure you save a few for the end of the game, and so you're always caught in that little dilemma, but. Maybe I should have, but at the same time, I don't think that was gonna make a big difference at that point.
Thank you.
Back to Tom Dowd.
Hey, Steve, just curious about, Nick and Bruce and their minutes. Both of them obviously missed differing amounts of time for different reasons. But where do they stand as far as kind of fitting them back into things?
Yeah, tonight I think was an opportunity to reintroduce them, to get their kind of feet wet, so to speak. They're still, trying to get them back to their full fitness. But it was great to have them get out there, feel it, and be a part of it.
Malika Andrews, ESPN.
Steve, when you're looking at the bigger picture and at the beginning of this road trip, talking about it being an opportunity to build camaraderie, to have a stretch where you're healthier than you've been, what can you sort of take from this game or these last two games as macro building blocks as you're finishing out this road trip, moving forward towards the playoffs?
I think it's a great experience for us to recognize where we are. We've got a gap to make up here. So we understand that's a team that's been running the same offense, been playing together, same schemes on defense for years now, gone deep into the playoffs, and that's something that we don't have. So how can we make up that gap? And that's kind of our life in a nutshell heading home here is, we're trying to get everyone back to full health, and we're going to try to overcome a lack of common experiences. And, that is our challenge as much as anything. So while we do that, can we be more physical? Can we be more connected? Can we handle and control some of the controllables? That can help us hang in some of these games and win some of these games while we're trying to put the pieces together.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks. Good night, everyone.
Steve Nash right there, and something he's brought up several times this season, brought it a couple of times there in that post-game press conference, the lack of a shared experience and shared history from this Nets team when it comes to big games. We haven't seen them at full strength that much at all this season. That's a Milwaukee team that's had some, again, unfortunate from their point of view, flameouts in the postseason, but there's some shared history there with some of their key guys. The Nets don't necessarily have that, so there's a lot of learning on the fly.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is so much of our attention sometimes goes to the big three. The fact that James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, they've only played 7 games together. It's everyone else, too. And so the moving parts have not just come from those key components, but it's this entire roster. To think about the fact that the Nets have had 34 different starting lineups, the amount of players that have been a part of the lineups, the rotations, the fact that Mike James, you look at, and he gave some tremendous minutes here for the Nets tonight, but this is an individual that's on a second 10-day contract. So there's a lot of different pieces that when you think about the shared experiences, when you think about the continuity, when you watch some of these breakdowns, you could tell that players are thinking and sometimes overthinking. We saw some of that, especially in the early part of the season we talked about, but it tended to pop up here again against a Milwaukee team that, to your point, there's a lot of continuity, there's a lot of same core pieces, and you could tell that they were clicking on all cylinders and came out ready to play and did so in a very physical manner that hampered the Nets in a variety of areas.
More on this game. Again, the Bucks get the victory by 6 over the Brooklyn Nets. Respect between these two guys. They put on a show in these last 2 games. Locker room reaction for the next on the way on the Nets post game.